I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, April the 25th. The board crumbled on Wednesday. You wonder why? Well, mostly it was bearish technical indicators, which basically means squiggly lines on a graph of the graph futures. And I know a lot of you guys, fundamentalists, don't really agree with that. I could be included in one of those too. I have studied those some. But basically, when a lot of your prognosticators, your speculators, your traders, your hedgers, when they're all looking at the same graph and they're all recognizing the same patterns and they all react the same way, well, then they do ring true. So not necessarily do I believe in the gaps and the trends and all that kind of thing, but if everybody's reading them the same way, then yeah, they're going to work. And that's what happened on Wednesday. It may have had a little bit to do with your cash fat cattle trade that started, and it was steady in the southern plains and a little bit lower in the northern plains, where we saw a new high for the spring cash fat cattle trade a week ago. But we didn't see a new high in the southern plains, so that might have had a little bit to do with it. What we really need is some more news coming out of China with their hog deal. That African swine fever deal, we haven't had any new news. We haven't had any more news about how we're going to handle trade. We've had some trade talks, but nothing really that we can sink our teeth into. I did hear from a guy that lives over in Asia earlier in the week, and he told me, he said this is being way underreported. It's a lot worse than what they're releasing because of the state-owned media, and so, like I said before, their fake news may be worse than our fake news, if you can believe that. But let's look at the board on Wednesday. April live cattle futures down $1.55 at 126.77. June was down $2.77 at 118.35. Your August is all the way back down to under 116 at 115.82. On feeder cattle, May contracts down $3.10, 146.52. August was down $2.97 at 156.72. Your fall contracts are back down well under 160 now at 158.30, and you know, we had a nice little rally there for a while it lasted, but now we've fallen back as just nothing really to prop things up anymore. And it looks now that we said this before, but it looks, unless something happens with this China deal, I'm sure we've probably put our spring highs in, and probably on box beef cutout values too. And we know that your packers don't like to give up their profits, so they're going to be tough to trade with now for a while. But Southern Plains sold cattle on Wednesday at 126, which is steady. And I know you guys are thinking, if you're going to just settle for steady, why don't you wait and hold out until later in the week? Because you know the packers are hungry if they're coming to you early to midweek. Well, yeah, I agree with that too, but when the board's falling like a rock, then you know maybe that behooves you to want to go ahead and trade a little bit. But few 127 in Kansas, but so basically 126 is your market in the Southern Plains. A little bit of trade, although it hasn't really been established what price we're going to be at. But in Iowa and Nebraska, a little bit of live trade from 127 to 128. That'd be $1 to $2 lower. A little bit of trade from 206 to 208 dressed, but then you also had some Iowa sales that were way down there at 201, and you never really know what's going on there. Box beef cutout values, like I said, continue to weaken. Choice cuts on Wednesday afternoon at 232.96, down $1.15. Selects at 220.28, down 98 cents. Your slaughter's kind of keeping up with the same figures from a year ago. Look at some of your feeder cattle markets, your real-time index, and if you guys watch that real-time index and you saw it launch yesterday, we had one big fat-fingered number that come in there on Tuesday, and it kind of messed up your real-time index. We tracked that down. We got that fixed, and it's just one of those things that happens. But your real-time index late on Wednesday sitting at 144.84, down $2.42. I know that's a hunk, but you also look at your weights in that real-time index. Your average weight rose 6 pounds all the way up to 812 pounds, and it's based on an 800 pounder, but it's really just 700 pound steers up to 899 pound steers, and there's just more of them moving this week that are weighing up in the eights quite a ways. But let's look at some of your feeder cattle markets. OKC West, the big sale for the week, 8,700 head, counting about 1,600 calves that had a lower undertone on Tuesday. But on Wednesday, feeder cattle $2 to $5 lower. I don't know if you guys noticed on the Federal State Market Report there that most all of your light eights were thrown in the ones and twos, and most of your heavy eights stayed up in the number ones, which tells me there was a whole lot more pressure on your light eights, and somebody was doing some price grading, so they dropped them down in the second cut. It's human nature, that's what happens. But didn't have any light eights up in the 150s like we did a week ago, so really you could probably call the market a whole lot lower on feeder steers than what it was. But look at the big quote out of El Reno, and just showing you how much cheaper the market is. 201 head of 836 pound steers, just commodity cattle at OKC West, bring 135 and a quarter, and they've taken a hunk out of this cash feeder market in a big hurry. Winter livestock in Dodge City, Kansas, pretty good run, 2,800 head, but they had such a light run a week ago there was not any really good comparisons. But you could look at some of the quotes, and there were no $150 8-weight steers there either. They got close but didn't quite do it. Going to talk about some markets that we haven't talked about much because we've been concentrated in the central part of the United States. But remember, when you get out east, they've got yearlings when nobody else has yearlings. It'll get worse as we go through the summer, or better for them. What I should say is because they'll have green yearlings all through the year there, whenever that all of ours are turned out and just not available for sale. But Bluegrass Stockyards East, Mount Sterling, Kentucky, 62 head of 873 pound steers at $137.75. That's about as good as they sell most anywhere, guys. But your big quotes always come out of Bassett, Nebraska. It's no different this week, but I was able to go up there a couple weeks ago. Really enjoyed it up there. Met a lot of great people, had a good time. And like I told you, I've never been fed and watered near as good as I was there in Bassett, Nebraska. But Bassett had over 5,000 head of cattle there for a good sale on Wednesday. You look at this Cattle Market Central Market Report, you can see that all the weights over 500 pounds, sure, steady to $5 lower. Your Pee-wee calves, 3 and 4 weights, were some higher there, but not nearly as well tested. But some of your well-tested middleweight steer cattle there, 520 head of 6-weight steers, average 635 at 179.57. Still awfully high quote there. 532 head of 7-weight steers, average 756 at 157.06. And I tell you where they did have some 158-weight cattle was in Bassett. You can tell from the average there, 646 head of those 8-weight steers, all of them averaged 843 pounds with a weighted average price of $149.39. So the average on them was nearly $150. But look at this ring full, or a big string of cattle. They couldn't get them all in the ring. But the Monahan cattle, they were really hoping to sell those a few weeks ago whenever I was up there, but it was still too muddy from all the floods to get them out. But look at these Monahan Hereford cattle. There's a difference in these Hereford cattle, guys, and you can look at those and tell the bulk of them are really just really high quality redneck cattle. But Hereford cattle, 207 head of them, weigh 530 pounds, and yearlings at 192.50. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.